Just massive, massive props to you and your team for putting this together. It's great to be here.
Let's give a big shout out to Ruby. And Ruby didn't raise the
Yes.
tip jar. Ruby, you got to put the tip jar out because people have loose linden shekels flying around in their pockets and they want to tip you. Ruby put, oh, where's the tip jar? Can you move tip jars with your mind, Ruby? Oh, there it is. Um, yeah, the if the camera can go up a little bit, behind us are the Watts Towers, and we'll talk about the Watts Towers a little bit in the educational part of the program, because the Watts Towers are just absolutely amazing, built by a Italian immigrant over the course of 30 years in the Watts area, and people generally know Watts and Compton, this area for gang related shootings and all this kind of stuff. But it's an amazing area. But anyway, so Jackson, I want to start with the gist of this story. And sometimes I ask people um, about the elevator pitch or whatever, but I gave a little bit sort of an overview. How would you describe this? I mean, the blurb on the book, I forgot who said it, but it's like Alias meets X-Men. Oh, did we lose Jackson? Uh-oh. Hello, hello? I think we lost him. Oh my God. There's a secret agency that just killed Jackson. We lost Jackson. He's typing. Now, as we're trying to figure out these technical difficult audio problems, he's going to quit and rejoin. Okay, so then let me vamp a little bit. Now, the book is centered around Tegan Frost. Now, Tegan Frost has psychokinetic powers. Do people know what psychokinetic powers are? This is when you can move stuff with your mind, or you can bend, for example, spoons, right? Uri Geller pretended that he knew how to bend spoons. That was debunked many, many, many times. And Jackson is back, and he's getting his bearings on the audio. And
I have no
meantime,
idea what happened.
no, it's all good. Meantime, I'm vamping and setting up the book a little bit. And Tegan Frost is, as far as she knows, the only person who has these psychokinetic powers, and she is part of a team of an unnamed special unit of the government that investigates certain things. They might be NSA, CIA, unacknowledged, tiny little special ops team. And what is very cool about the book is that it's situated in real Los Angeles, with all its socioeconomic issues, with the gentrification, with the huge homeless problem on Skid Row. And this stuff is not glossed over. This stuff is um, woven into the texture and the subtext of the narrative, which I personally find uh, very satisfying. And sometimes it's done, in a sort of a superficial way. Let's see if we have Jackson back. Are you back?
Check, check. Hello.
Awesome. Can people hear Jackson in Second Life? Please give us a heads up in the local
Make
chat.
some noise.
You have to hit the button, the
All
speak
right.
button.
Hold up. Hold up. There we go.
Hit the
Hit the mic
button.
button. Can you hear me now?
Let's see here. People are responding. Okay, now, woohoo!
Yeah.
Okay, now
Okay.
I'm going to confront you with something here right away, because
Jesus.
and
All
then
right.
yeah, this is like the Jerry Springer show. No, but here's a
Hmm.
quote from the end of the book where Tegan, the main protagonist, with the psychokinetic power, says to a boy, a young man who there is a little bit of a romance going on. She says to him, "Imagine being in a relationship and the only place I can have sex is in the middle of the damn woods." Explain.
Oh
And
man.
so this gives you. I'm throwing the ball to you. Set up a little bit of the world that she lives in. Why can she only have sex in the middle of the woods?
Okay. So Tegan, the hero of the Frostfile series, she's a young woman. She's only about 22, 23. Um, and she has the ability, genetically engineered, to, as Drax said, to move things with her mind. She has psychokinesis. And I was thinking about what her love life would be like. And I decided to throw in an interesting wrinkle because, as I'm sure people, in the audience will know, when you're in the midst of an orgasm, you lose control of things, you lose awareness of your surroundings. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if in the middle of an orgasm, Tegan lost control of her power in a
Hmm.
potentially destructive way? I wasn't sure I was going to like demonstrate this in the book. It wasn't going to be a scene where she came and lost control of her power, but I did think it would be interesting to kind of place her love life in the context of that because, of course, Tegan is interested in sex. She's a young woman, she's in LA, she is aware of sex, she knows what it is, and so she would try and have it. And so she worked out that the only way to do it would be to have sex in an environment where she couldn't grab onto things. Because another little wrinkle of Tegan's power is that she cannot manipulate organic matter. It has to be
Yes.
inorganic.
Yes.
So the middle of the forest is somewhere where there's no inorganic matter to manipulate. It wasn't a very good experience for her. Her powers didn't go crazy, but she felt very awkward. So
I found that is actually really cool. And I was always in the beginning like, okay, she can only manipulate non-organic, inorganic matter. Usually the fights are all about like she drops an F-150. Oh no, actually the guy does that now. I forgot. But when she goes, she actually has more power than she thinks she has. In the beginning, it's all about like little utensils and stuff like that, or guns. Um,
mm,
and then it's microwaves and bigger things and bigger. And then at the very end, I go like, ah, now I know why Jackson made her do that. That's just an awesome twist there.
thanks, man. Yeah, like I wanted her to be as unlike a typical superhero as possible and to live in a world with with real situations that she might have to confront that she's not equipped for. And I was just thinking about what that would be like. And I thought this was a natural way of looking at it and something that you could see happening.
What I found interesting, I'm not a big superhero guy. And I don't want to get too deep into it because this is not about me. But I always found superpowers to be a little bit of a narrative cop out because ultimately I know people will object and I get a lot of hate mail for that, but people will say, well, that's not true. There are rules and so on and so forth. But you kind of accomplish this by making it. I don't know. There's a restriction to that particular superpower, and maybe it's also because she's situated with all the other colleagues of her, her secret agency outfit that they don't have the superpowers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for some reason, you accomplish something that is very enjoyable for me as someone who would otherwise reject superhero stuff because it just bores me when some narrative, little cul-de-sac is being sort of like solved by yeah, and then there's this other thing and just shit drops out of the Deus ex machina kind of thing.
Mm. Like 90% of my job in writing the series, and I think in writing books in general, is creating complex problems for myself, getting really annoyed that I've done this, and then trying to work out a way to get out of them, and while just going, "This is all your fault, you dumb motherfucker." Um, yeah, superpowers, they can be quite damaging to story because if you have all-encompassing superpowers, if you're Superman, well, that's not very interesting. Superman is the
Exactly.
least interesting hero simply
Exactly.
because he can do just about anything, including flying around the world so fast that he reverses time. To me, that's not interesting. I
Yep.
want someone whose powers are flawed and complex and don't quite work right and don't always listen to them. I view them almost like athletes. A basketball player, for example, has the skill of dribbling a basketball and shooting a three-pointer, but it's not going to work out 100% every time. They're not going to get 100% of their shots. To me, that's far more interesting than Superman just nuking someone with his laser eyes.
Absolutely. Very well said. This is exactly how I felt. And now uh the powers, they kind of increase. There's a little like a Hulk quality, and like I said, there's only her, but there then in the course of the narrative of the first book, there's another person that has very similar powers, and it's all situated in various neighborhoods um in LA. We'll hear a little read from the very beginning of the book in just a few minutes,
Mm.
that takes place in downtown. But I was wondering about your fascination with LA. I mean, LA is a fascinating, place to set narrative. I mean, obviously that's why tons of movies play there and stories. But you're from South Africa. What's your connection with LA, and then maybe with just that milieu and that kind of setting?
I relate to LA more than many other American cities because, to my mind, Los Angeles and Johannesburg are very, very similar places.
Mm,
Um, you know, I grew up in a city where you had to have a car to get somewhere and you just don't rely on public transport. I grew up in a city with massive all encompassing highways. I grew up in a city where, every neighborhood is like its own little island and you get these very isolated communities in the middle of this bigger city. And so when we were thinking about where to set the Frost Files, I knew I didn't quite want to set it in Johannesburg. That didn't feel quite right to me. I wanted to set it in America. I wanted this to be an American story. And LA just kind of jumped out as this is where I want it to be. I also have a more personal connection with LA. I've spent a lot of time there. I got to go on a journalism fellowship there, which was great for seeing parts of the city the tourists don't necessarily see. So I
hmm
have a real affection for LA. I know it has a ton of problems, including mass homelessness, horrifying traffic, horrifying pollution. Like, this is not a perfect city by any means, but it's also a city of incredible culture, incredible food,
Yep.
incredible people. Like, if I was allowed to live in the States by US immigration, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, I would probably go and live in LA. I don't think there's another city I'd really want to be in at this point.
This is really interesting that you say that. And my big hero, Werner Herzog, the German filmmaker, talks very fondly about LA as well. And a lot of my my German friends, when I moved to LA and they came to visit, and this may be true for a lot of people who come from Europe and they go to California, you hear a lot that we love San Francisco. Oh my God, LA is terrible. It's just traffic and just roads. And I always say, well, listen, LA is a place where you have to have a little bit of a plan. Otherwise you'll miss, like you said, these little pockets of these self-contained communities of where the culture that thrives. I mean, there is a place where you get the best Polish food in the world, I would argue. I've been to Poland many times, and I've been to
Mm,
LA or the Eagle Rock area where there's Polish restaurants that I think are better actually. So,
yeah.
but it's just such this behemoth that is difficult to explore. Yeah, but you accomplished to bring that into, like I said, to me, your book and other books that are set there are a little bit of a time travel. Again, they're also driving a lot with the van, and you have also South LA as an area in there as a sort of a
Right.
protagonist, which is great because it's associated often with just gang activity, which is really sad.
Yeah, I wanted to reflect the city honestly. And that didn't just mean, getting the street names right and getting the directions right and things like the weather and all of that. That stuff is very surface level. I wanted to reflect the city and give each area, just like approach each area with respect and with the idea that, it's all very easy to call, South LA like a gang area. Well, it's a hell of a lot more than that. People live there.
hmm
People live their entire lives there. And I think you have to approach it with almost a journalistic mindset, of a sense of, I'm going to go and I'm going to find the story of this place. And that story may be incredibly complex and I need to do the best job I can to paint it. I'm probably not going to get it complete, but I'm going to give it a good shot. That's how I went into it. I knew that LA was, I don't want to go with the cliche of, the city is the last character. That's not quite how it is, but I wanted the setting to be believable to people who lived in those areas. I wanted them to
hmm
pick up the book and be like, "Oh, okay, no, that's what it's like. That is exactly what it's like."
I have in my run sheet for later, but since we're on the subject, and you mentioned that you have a background in journalism, I believe you wrote for The Guardian. How does this sort of compare what you're doing now? I mean, that's a kind of like a two-for question. Why did you transition from reporting on real things to making shit up? Actually, that should be the your memoir.
Dude, no, honestly,
There's shit in the
I've used
title,
those
dude.
I've
Yeah.
used those words, very similar words to that in the past. My sort of answer for whenever I'm asked that question, which is why did you stop doing journalism and start writing fiction, was I get more of a kick of making things up than not making them up.
hmm
Um, I became a journalist because I wanted a career that would let me write. I've been a writer since I was a little kid, and when I was choosing a career, I was like, well, I'll give journalism a try because that will let me write. And I like journalism. It was fun. It led me down some very interesting paths. I got to interview some very interesting people. I got to talk to my heroes. But ultimately, there were parts of journalism that I wasn't brilliant at. I wasn't brilliant at confrontational interviews. I'm not the world's greatest researcher. And when it came to like actually tracking down sources and getting quotes, I could do it. I did it very successfully for a while, but I was far from the best. And there was that niggling feeling at the back of my mind, like, not sure I want to do this for the rest of my life. And when I started writing fiction, and I wrote fiction and did journalism simultaneously for quite a long time because fiction obviously doesn't pay the bills, especially at first. Um, there was this sense that this is what I'm meant to be doing. Like,
Mhm.
this is me using whatever talent I've been given in the best way possible. And so, slowly over the years, I've done less and less journalism and more fiction.
Mhm. I'm sure that that one of the skills to actually look at some detail and also to describe surroundings and situations is probably a skill that is very transferable. I would
There's been a
imagine.
question asked in the chat. Would you mind if I address that real
Oh,
quick?
please! I was going to say, pick up anything that's coming in the chat. Oh yeah, Shyla here. Random question: which is easier, selecting existing real-world location such as LA or world building? Oh.
Real world location,
Hmm.
100% real world location. I don't have to make up the rules of living in Los Angeles. You know the rules already. You know what it's like to drive a car. I don't have to, explain things like, oh, the gravity is different here. Oh, this is where they get their food. Where do you get your food in LA? You go down to the fucking corner store. Like, it's a real world location. The heavy lifting has already been done for me. When I'm
Hmm.
creating a completely fictional world, something I'm working on right now is actually set in a completely different world to ours, um, and that requires a lot more heavy lifting and a lot more thought. So when I'm writing about LA, the work's already been done for me.
Hmm. And Stella here says there's also a point that truth is stranger than fiction.
Yep, truth.
Yeah. I would say there's actually a deeper truth in fiction sometimes. I'm on a Thomas Pynchon binge that, as people
Mm,
know, the great um, crazy postmodernist who is still alive, but nobody knows where he is and what he writes. But okay, before I get into Pynchon, we have Jackson Ford here, and Jackson will read for us now. Oh, before we read, before Jackson will use his skateboard to go forward.
okay,
Uh,
hold on. This could go horribly wrong. Okay, for the record, guys, I have no idea what I'm doing.
This is what we do with our guests. We
Having to
just
like
throw it at them like, "Hey, we forgot to tell you that you actually have to skate towards the books." Then, no, no,
Okay.
we're good. We're good. This is just pretty brilliant. Look at
Okay. So
this.
all right, I'm not standing like inside the book. I haven't clipped through
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry. We have a girl that can move book shit with her mind.
What
Um,
up, Liz? Or is that Ruby who's doing that?
Ruby is doing it. Liz can move camera drones that are invisible with her mind, and she's doing it. Uh,
Okay.
we have incredible. Okay, before we read, can you briefly define psychokinesis while you were crashing? I tried to define it. Um, so what are psychokinetic powers, and is there actually such a thing? I was talking about Yuri Geller, who is a scammer, um, but
Hmm.
to your knowledge, is there such a thing documented by science?
No. There has never been any scientific evidence of psychokinesis, which is the ability, obviously, to move objects without touching. There have been a lot of people who say they can do it, including Yuri Geller. It has never come to much. It's something that at this point is pure fiction.
The amazing Randy actually has made it his life. He has other life goals, but one of them is and he has debunked Uri Geller. Now, Shiloh is mentioning Carlos Castaneda and the Yaqui in the local chat. I don't know. You got to elaborate. But now we're gonna hear Jackson read from his book, and this is the first chapter of the series. Um, there's really no big need to set it up. Although I would like to say that this is happening in downtown LA in a huge skyscraper where the crew has a job.
Hold on,
Tegan
hold on,
forget.
hold on, hold on.
Yes.
Let's just go in cold on this. As
Okay, you
little
got it. Okay.
backstory as possible. You got to trust me on this.
Okay. Okay. I'll trust you.
Okay. Excuse me. On second thoughts, throwing myself out the window of a skyscraper may not have been the best idea. Not because I'm gonna die or anything. I've totally got that under control. It wasn't smart because I had to bring Annie Cruz with me. And Annie, it turns out, is a screamer. Her fists hammer on my back, her voice piercing my eardrums, even over the rushing air. I don't know what she's worried about. Pro tip: if you're going to take a high dive off the 82nd floor, make sure you do it with a psychokinetic holding your hand. Being able to move objects with your mind is useful in all sorts of situations. I'll admit, this one is a little tricky. Plummeting at close to terminal velocity, surrounded by a hurricane of glass from the window we smashed through, the lights of Los Angeles whirling around us, and Annie screaming and the rushing air blowing the stupid clip on tie from my security guard disguise into my face. Not ideal. Doesn't matter though. I've got this. I can't actually apply any force to either Annie's body or mine. Organic matter like human tissue doesn't respond to me, which is something I don't really have time to get into right now, but I can manipulate anything inorganic: bricks, glass, metal, the fridge door, a six pack, the TV remote, the zipper on your pants, and belt buckles. I've had some practice at this whole moving ship with your mind thing. I've already reached out, grabbed hold of the big metal buckles on our belts. We're probably going to have some bruises tomorrow, but it's a hell of a lot better than getting gunned down in a penthouse or splatting all over Figueroa Street.
Hmm.
I solidify my mental grip around the two buckles, then force them upwards, using my energy to counteract our downward motion. We start to slow, my belt tightening, hips starting to ache as the buckles take the weight and immediately snap. Okay, yeah, definitely not the best idea.
And this is Jackson Ford reading from The Girl Who Could Move Shit with Her Mind. Thank you, Jackson, for stopping me for setting this stuff up. This is such an occupational hazard because sometimes I feel like, oh, I got to set it up because uh, there's when people read from the middle of of something. So this is Tegan and Annie, who has no powers that we know of, or like superpowers.
Yep.
And there are other people on this team, and this is also what I really like. There are people on the team with various different backgrounds and family issues, and you're not, you're not like r- rubbing this in as I told you before. Sometimes it feels people just put that stuff in as if they learned it at a workshop somewhere,
Yeah.
right? Like people go like, okay, you can't just write a straight out thriller, people fighting and throwing them out of windows. You got to throw in there that I don't know, Grandma Ida has cancer and this and that. But the
Yeah.
way you do it is organic. It makes sense. Also, Paul, the guy who's like a sort of the stiff guy, but he's divorced. He has a kid, and that stuff is not obtrusive, but it's just so organic. So I don't know. Um, if I would go to your workshop in 3 minutes, can you teach me how to do this, or how did
Man,
you learn it?
okay. Fuck. Shit. Now
Ah,
you're
the
gonna now you're gonna
swearing
now you
today.
get now
What
you're
the?
gonna make me now you're gonna make me think about this. Um, I don't have an answer for you in terms of how to incorporate characters organically into the story. What I would say is that you have to treat each character like they've got a massive backstory that like they've had an entire life before they arrived in your story. You're not going to necessarily explore that entire life. You don't have the time. You
Right.
don't want to burden your readers with that. But you have to be aware that there is a lot that goes into these characters and that they are going to act in particular ways because of everything that's happened to them up to that point. And so, I try to approach my characters that way, not as, oh, this is the funny one, this is the cute one, this is the one who always falls over things. I try to approach it as, okay, what has this person's life been like? What do they think about the people around them? Um, what would they do in various scenarios? Like if they got a parking ticket. Like for me, it's quite fun to imagine what Tegan would do if she got a parking ticket. Um,
Mhm.
and it's again, I'm not sure anything I'm saying now is particularly helpful because it's not something that I've really put a lot of conscious attention
No,
into.
it really is because what it sounds to me is like what I do also, and I know that you're a musician as well. I mean, this is what I do sometimes with music, and I have a formal music education, and I would be able to
Right.
explain it, but some of the stuff is just totally intuitive, and you've done stuff for a long time, and then you just do it the way to taste like a You know what drove me crazy with my grandmother, who was an amazing cook, and food plays a big role in your book as well. But I would ask her, "Oh my God, what do you do? Like, how do you actually do this?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. I just do it to taste." And that drove me nuts. I wanted her to write it down very specifically, but this is just when people are good at something, they just do a lot of stuff intuitively. I have one quote because Shyla does research for the show. I only read the books. I don't know where people come from, what they do. I mean, I know that you're from Johannesburg. I knew that,
Yeah.
but she listens to interviews and then she pulls some quotes. And here's a quote I think is along the lines what you just said. In this interview, you said, "I just went in going. I want to tell a story that I like. I want to have the most fun possible writing this book. I want to tell a story that could only have come from me, and we'll figure out who it's for later. For now, the story is for me." I think this is actually quite profound. That
Coming
when
with the deep cuts. Wow.
Yeah, because it's. I mean, sometimes. I mean, obviously, in normal life, there are certain restrictions that we have. We have to make a living, and sometimes we have to make a living with stuff that we're not really, interested in. And if you're a writer, sometimes you have assignments that you have to do or whatnot. Blah blah blah. But if you're free to create what you want to create, it makes sense to focus on something that you want to read. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Especially when I first started out, like I didn't know if I'd ever be published. I didn't know if my shit would ever find an audience, but I knew that I loved doing it and I loved the act of writing. So I was like, well, the only person I have to please right now is
Hmm.
me. I don't have to worry about anyone else. And I try to approach, obviously now I've had a little bit of success and I have some readers, which is phenomenal. It still blows my mind. But I try to approach each project like that. Like, am I interested in telling the story? Because if the story doesn't interest me, then I'm going to spend 3 or 4 months writing something I hate, and I'm going to be bored out of my mind. So
Hmm.
I would rather write a story that I know I would pick up and read. Um, Shila's asked another great question in the chat, which kind of relates to that. Has your journalistic experience helped you in writing your characters and their conflicts? And I'd say
Hmm.
absolutely. Um, the one thing journalism does is it exposes you to a whole range of people, some of whom you would never cross paths with, and it forces you not just to extract information from those people, but to understand how they think, or it should, if you're doing your job right as a journalist. And so often I've had to talk to people who I don't necessarily agree with and who believe things that I don't necessarily believe. And it's my job to quote them warmly and accurately and to
Hmm.
do, and to treat them fairly. Um, and if I think that really has helped in approaching characters because I find it's now not too much of a stretch to write a character with a viewpoint that I profoundly disagree with. I
Hmm.
don't just have to write characters who live within my worldview. I can write characters who come from everywhere. Um, I there are plenty of great writers who haven't been journalists at all, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you are planning to be a writer, a little bit of journalism will go a long way in teaching you to craft great characters.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point. So you might actually this is pretty good career advice. I mean, or it might be the worst career advice ever because
It's the word
there's no.
journalism doesn't pay. Journalism
Actually, I
pays
was
like
just gonna say
ass.
there's no money
Terrible
in
career
either of
advice.
these careers.
Yep, don't listen to you do not do journalism or fiction writing for money. You just don't.
Actually, I think you should, and I mean this quite honestly because my brother-in-law is a bus driver in Honolulu, and if if you want to be a sociologist and you can't pay your student loans, you should become a bus driver
Yep.
and then write about that. There's actually a German woman who wrote a book about her time as a bus driver. This is where you have access to people from all walks of life, and you are witness to just amazing stories. Uh, Real quick, because I see here in the audience Stranger Nightfire, who's a regular at the book club, and we had a conversation the other day where he says, and Stranger, please correct me in the local chat if I quote you wrong. This is not a direct quote, but you said something to the effect that it annoys you sometimes when a writer brings in a character who is really, really good, and you really kind of identify with that person, and then the writer throws you for a loop by making that person do something despicably horrible. How do you feel
Mm.
about that? Jackson, just in general, this is kind of a broad question because this could be applied in many different ways. I mean, you have a character Jake in this book, who is very well drawn, I think, who's
Thanks, man.
also really conflicted, and the conflict, and he does some really bad shit. Um, but he's also manipulated to a large extent. So my sympathies or my empathy is still with him. Anyways, take that question where you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that annoys me as well. A perfectly good character suddenly doing something horrible and despicable that's completely against, what they've been in the past. And I think when you do encounter that, then the writer just hasn't done a very good job of painting these characters. But
And we're not talking about complexity. Sorry to jump in here, but we're
yeah,
not talking about sort of. I mean, every well-drawn character is obviously complex. There's no just good or bad. We're not talking about these nuances. We're talking about something that, to me, sometimes is a little bit like a shtick, right? Where it's like, hey, I can totally shock you by making this person that I spent 300 pages, uh, you know, creating in a coherent way. I have the power to make you sort of be disgusted about that person with like one sentence or something. And that to me seems kind of gratuitously flippant, I guess, as a reader.
yeah, I'd say so. I think if you're going to make a character do that, they've got to do it for a very, very good reason, and there has to be build up to it and foreshadowing of it. Um, it's if you have a character wandering around being polite to everyone and saving the day, and then suddenly they turn around and kill a cat, I'd be like, "But hold on, just back up a second. What the fuck just happened here?" So yeah, I think fortunately, I think that's a fairly easy thing to avoid if you're writing fiction. I think if you as a writer write a character that does that, and you don't immediately stop and go, "Wait a second, what am I making this person do here?" Then I think you're not paying attention to your story. Um,
Mhm.
as I said, I don't think it's something you see very often these days. The standard of fiction now is so very, very high, especially in the sci-fi and fantasy world, that I can't remember the last time I've seen something like that. A character just completely flipping on us for no reason.
It also sounds a little bit of yeah, like somebody is just doing I don't know, on purpose, and feels very avant-garde about it. And I say this as somebody who loves avant-garde and who has dabbled in different musical avant-garde genres. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah. So as we mentioned, I just want to bring up the slide. The Watchtowers. What's this mentioned in the book, and all these little things. I love those little things. You read the book and then you open Wikipedia and then you go like, oh, Watchtowers, I didn't know anything
Yep.
about it. Watchtowers was built by Sabato Rodia over the course of 33 years. He was an Italian laborer, and he built this from 1921 to 1954. These towers, just absolutely amazing. I mean, you guys gotta read up on this. I don't know if he bought this place at the time, or um, uh, it's owned by the city now. But this is considered, interestingly enough, outsider art, which I don't like that term. There's also a term outsider music.
Mm,
Is usually when people without a formal education do something like this, which is kind of messed up, right? I mean, why
yeah.
can't he be an artist just because he's a laborer? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Watts Towers. They are among the most incredible sculptures I've seen in my life. I've visited them twice, and like no one knows about them. The city of LA never really promotes them as a tourist destination. You never hear tourists talk about them. If you don't live in Los Angeles, even some people who live in LA who I've spoken to are like, "Well, what's the Watts Towers?"
Yeah.
And I think there's a slight element of racism there as well. The Watts Towers obviously are in Watts, which is right in the middle of the ghetto. Um,
They don't want. I
very
mean,
much.
maybe the city administration does. Well, oh my God, if a tourist gets shot there, then we get bad press.
I
So
don't know, man. Alphonse in the chat has pointed out that they are in Grand Theft Auto, the one that was San Andreas, the one that was set in kind of the
ah,
fictional version of LA, and they were, but they also, and kudos to Rockstar for putting them in that game. But I don't think they were specifically highlighted as like something in LA to visit in that game. And certainly, you do, although people do visit there now, you have to go out of your way to get there. And just as a work of art and just as something that has withstood so much, these towers are just extraordinary. I still look at them and go, how the hell did one man build all of that?
It's insane, and we have to mention that this is made with everything that he found there, like with found objects, old bottles, mirrors. I'm reading off Wikipedia here, porcelain tile, and you just put that together with concrete and put this up there, all with just stuff that he was lying around, that he found lying around over the course of this 30 plus years. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lay claim to, the first person to ever put Watts Towers in a novel, or the first person to write about them. That's like, I'm very much neither of those things. I certainly didn't discover the Watts Towers, but having visited them long before I started writing, when I started thinking about writing a story in LA, I was like, well, you know, there I never hear or read about the Watts Towers in fiction, so why can't they feature in mine?
Hmm.
And so I made them a big part of the second book. My favorite story about them is the city of LA, wonderful display of racism, decided in the 1960s that they were going to take the towers down because, in inverted commas, they were an earthquake hazard, and they really just didn't want the people of Watts to have nice things. So the people of Watts got together and said, "Right, if you can pull the towers down, we won't say anything." And so the city attached a crane to them, exerted tons and tons of force, and couldn't budge them 1 inch. And so the towers stand to
Wow.
this day.
This is amazing. Shyla put the link to the trailer. There is obviously, apparently, I didn't know this, a documentary made called "I Built the Towers."
Yeah.
We're talking with Jackson Ford here on the Second Life Book Club. If you're just tuning in, I got to look a little bit here if the chat on YouTube is going. Yeah, we're good. We have a lot of people here. I just want to acknowledge this with roller skates. We
Yes.
have a guy here with, if the camera could zoom in there. Oh, Annalise Avery is here. She loves roller skates. And next to her is a guy, and I forgot your name, with flaming wheels of concrete. So there are rolling wheels of concrete underneath his feet, and they're flaming. Yukinoro, Yukinoro, welcome. So it's great to have everybody here. It's good to see that there are people who are interested in books and also in skateboards. And here's Shyla, the super gecko, of course. Shyla, researcher for the show, is is here with her skateboard and a bandana, um, and and um, and something to smoke in her mouth. I'm not judging. I'm not smoking, but I'm not judging. That's it's
This is fascinating for me to
this
listen
is
to,
Second
by
Life.
the way. Second Life is wild.
Absolutely. This is not meta made by the Zuck, where you probably couldn't smoke a doobie in a Venice skate park replica during a book show where you discussed the Watchtowers. Am I right?
Yep, yep.
You just started talking about book number 2. Let's do another reading. I have to
All right.
swap
Hold up.
out the.
I gotta
Take your
swap out,
time.
and Ruby's gotta make sure that I don't
Yeah,
skate past the thing again. Hold on, this is surprisingly tricky.
Ruby, you handle the book stand, but I need to change the
Oh god,
texture.
hang on,
uh,
hang on. Don't move the butt. Don't move. I got it. Okay, okay.
no,
I'm not moving. I'm not moving. I think I'm close enough.
wait a minute. We got the wrong book. What book are we reading? Random
There's just
shit. What?
random shit flying through the air. It's the white cover.
Random. Okay, let me get this here. So we're changing the book cover. Random
Yep.
shit flying through the air. And again, I will defer to you in terms of setup because I haven't read this book. I have no idea. Oh, Shyla is asking a question. What do the animals signify on the cover? Well, we'll answer this later, Shyla. There's no
Okay.
gecko on
Okay.
the cover, I guess. Or you want to answer it now?
Because yeah, it's just very quick. They don't signify anything in particular. My publisher designs the covers, and I think we're just trying to go through as many animals as we can. So there's a cat, there's a dog. I think one of them has a goldfish on them. There's a flamingo on the new one. Like they don't really signify anything special.
Aha. Ah, yeah. This is for the obsessive compulsive readers who, uh, they get bored of the QAnon conspiracies. They know got to figure out what's going on with the animal.
I should have fucked with everybody, being like, nah,
Absolutely.
there's actually a hidden message about like stuff that's coming if you can work out the clues. I should have just messed with people. Missed
Absolutely.
opportunity.
I think your business advisors are need to get a new advisor. What's going on in this book? You set it up. I won't say anything.
All right, Random Shit Flying Through the Air is the second book in the Frost Files series. without wanting to spoil too much happened from the first book, Tegan is still going. China Shop, her government agency, is still going, and she's still desperate to become a chef and open her own restaurant. But that's going to have to be put on hold because a little boy, 4 years old, with the ability to cause earthquakes, has come to Los Angeles. And he is a 4-year-old boy that also happens to be a super intelligent sociopath. Who likes causing as much damage as possible. And for those who know California, there are more than a few fault lines knocking around, so it's very fertile ground for earthquakes. So I had a lot of fun writing this book. It was completely terrifying because I live in Vancouver on the Cascadia fault line, so I am right at the front row for an earthquake. But as we start the book, Tegan is just trying to do a little cooking, and that's the segment I'm going to read.
And here we go.
Okay. Oh, I fucked up. I fucked up bad. Sweat pours down my forehead, sliding into my eyes. I wipe it away with a knuckle, but that just makes it worse. God damn it, how could I be so stupid? I lick my lips. Okay, I can fix this. No biggie. I already have everything I need. Holding my breath, I maneuver the little wedge of metal into view, floating it through the air with my psychokinesis. Just as well, my hands are way too sweaty to hold it right now. Come on, baby, I whisper. Mama needs a new pair of shoes. Moving very, very freaking carefully, I wedge it into the gap, wiggle it gently back and forth. With a slight scritch, the metal spatula slips underneath the burnt rice, levering it up from the non-stick surface of the pan. I almost squeal with anxiety, hardly daring to look. When I do, I let out a relieved groan. I didn't scratch the pan. It's the one good piece of kitchen equipment I own outside of my knife, and I really didn't want to fuck it up because I don't know how to make paella. I'd already transferred the top layer of unburnt rice to a fresh pan, so at least I have that to work with later. I keep at it, gently prying up the edge of the burnt crust. Yes, I know you're not supposed to use metal on non-stick. I've lost my plastic spatula. It's somewhere in the messy clusterfuck that is my apartment, and I haven't been able to find it. The key to a good dinner party is to cook something you're familiar with. That way, you can do it on autopilot, casually reducing sauces and sauteing onions while chatting to your guests and looking like a total pro. So, of course, for tonight's dinner, I got it into my head to cook a dish I've never attempted before. Paella. It's Spanish and it's yummy. Chicken, mussels, peppers, chorizo, jumbo shrimp, bound together in creamy al dente risotto rice, stained yellow with saffron. It's one of my favorite things to eat in the world. Even the ones I've had here in Los Angeles, which is obviously not Spain, are pretty badass. After reading the recipe, I figured it didn't look too difficult. I don't exactly know why I thought it was the best time. I thought the best time to attempt it would be on a night I'm trying to impress a certain someone, but I did. I'm smart like that. Paella needs to be cooked over fire in a wide, shallow pan. That's how you make sure the rice is soft and squidgy on top and crusty and awesome on the bottom. I do not have a fire or a special paella pan. I have a shitty 4-ring burner in my postage stamp-sized kitchen. My mistake was turning the heat too high. The pan couldn't cut it. It's baking hot around the stove, and as I dig in with the spatula to get the rest of the burnt rice, a couple of drops of sweat launch themselves off my forehead and land right on top of the only properly cooked shrimp in the entire pan. Perfect. Just what every dish needs. Tegan's secret sauce. I push the spatula in deeper, going past the edge into the central part of the paella. Come on, you stupid piece of shit. The burnt crust does not come on. The burnt crust is a little bitch and stays put, even with my pinpoint precise mental movements of the spatula. Yes, having psychokinesis, PK as I call it, is really useful in the kitchen. It doesn't help with actual ingredients. I can't lift anything carbon or hydrogen based, so food is a no-go. But it's great for implements. Not that I can reveal my ability to anyone. If I ever do make it into a professional kitchen, something that is absolutely going to happen, by the way, I'll be on my own. Of course, to cook for a living, you probably have to know how to make a decent paella. Right now, I am so fired. It might be better if the meal actually looked nice. Trust me, a glowing pan of orangey yellow paella is an orgasmic sight. Mine is not. It's an off-white sludge of creamy rice and proteins and overcooking peppers. As it turns out, you need a ton of saffron to make any real difference to the color, and saffron is fucking expensive. Shockingly, the government agency I work for wouldn't let me expense 4 grams of the stuff. I run my finger down the oil-spattered page of the cookbook next to my stove, take a swig of beer. It's my third, and I only started drinking an hour ago, but screw it. I put the bottle down and go back to scraping, which is when the smoke alarm goes off. What the actual fuck? I know I let the rice burn, but the thing can't be that sensitive. Except, Jesus, there's a lot of smoke. My little apartment has highish ceilings, and it's all collected there, turning the air hazy. It looks like someone hotboxed the place. I send out my PK in a wild burst of energy, hunting for the off switch on the alarm. As I do so, my foot lands on a wet patch on the kitchen tiles. I grab at the counter for balance, arms whirling. My flailing hand just nicks the half full beer bottle, knocking off the counter to shatter in a bazillion pieces across the floor. I stand, breathing through my nose, listening to the blaring alarm, doing my best to think very hard about nothing at all. I somehow manage to shut the noise off and grab a dustpan and mop from out under the sink with my PK to handle the shattered bottle. Then I go back to scraping, keeping what's left of my poor mind on the beer cleanup. PK is great for multitasking, but I do sometimes wish my parents had given me other abilities. Superpowered cooking skills would have been nice. The ability to sense burning before it begins. Not exactly useful when you're trying to create the perfect soldier, but definitely more applicable to everyday life. The central part of the burnt rice still won't budge. It's tempting to just rip the stove and oven out of the wall with my PK and send them smashing through the window. I can do it too. I used to think I could only lift around 300 pounds, but a few months ago I discovered I was, well, let's just say I'm a lot stronger than that now. There's a knock at the door. No way is it 7:30 already. It can't be.
Ooh.
A look at the oven clock tells me otherwise. God damn it, he was supposed to text when he was getting close. I grabbed my phone from its charger by the fridge, and of course, he did. I just didn't hear it because I was too focused on not destroying dinner. There's a horrible moment of frozen panic where I'm not sure if I should keep cooking, open the windows for the smoke, answer the door, get him a drink, or just fall over. I settle for the door. I badly wish I had time to smarten up. When your crush is coming over for dinner, these things matter. I'd planned to put on something a little less gross than the Tupac tank I'm wearing and fix my hair. I've been growing it out lately and it's pulled back in a short, messy ponytail, black strands going every which way. I take a deep breath, tell myself to calm the fuck down, and open the door.
And this is Jackson Ford reading from Random Shit Flying Through the Air. We didn't have that much swearing since the very first show when Matt Ruff was reading from it was not Lovecraft Country, the other one. I can't even remember what book it was, but that was hilarious because our camera person was from Linden Lab, Strawberry. She is now replaced with Isabel, but Strawberry was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna get into so much trouble." We don't. We do what we want here, Jackson. So this is
Yep.
awesome. And just in appreciation of the title, I would like to have our girl that can move shit with her mind. Now, please, because that's why the rebar, the microwave, and these hubcaps are here on the side.
Sorry, when
Um,
now?
uh, wait, we you don't see it, but the camera can zoom out a little
Okay.
bit because here in Second Life we can move stuff with our mind. Ruby, would you please bring the microwave and have it fly around a little bit? Here we go.
This is so much better than a real life interview.
You
Million
can't do that.
times better.
You can't
Oh
do that
man,
at
I should have
Barnes
done
and
this years
Noble.
ago.
Yeah. Now make it physical, Ruby, and just let it drop and do the same with the rebar, please. And I prepared these hubcaps. There you go. Now it
Wow.
fell over. I think everybody can move it. Now we can just toss it around and stuff. Here's a rebar and some hubcaps. I mean, come on. Reading is fun and I'm all for single tasking reading, but uh sometimes we need a little bit more pizzazz of just
Shiler in the chat says the microwave doesn't skateboard that well. That's right. When it comes to skateboarding, that microwave is my bitch.
oh God. And I thought the swearing would stop. I hope
Fuck no.
I hope we're not offending our Code and Starfall. Thank you for your super chat here. There's a super chat question on YouTube. What character you feel is most like yourself? Did you write them as more of a projection of what you were, are, or want to be, or what you were in the past, are, or want to be? This is a great question from Kodai Jin Starfall.
Hmm.
Uh, I would venture to guess that Jackson was not allowed to swear as a child, and that's why he created this. But anyway, take it where you will.
Tegan is a version of me. Absolutely. She is
Ah.
like a supercharged on drugs version of my own personality on the page. Like we have a lot of similarities. We both love swearing, we both love cooking, we both love rap music. She's just a lot cooler and more interesting than I am, which is something that I can do because I am in control of this world. But I think to some extent that all the other characters have at least a little of me in them. Um, it's I think that's impossible to avoid. But I definitely embraced it with Tegan. I was like, I'm just going to make a cooler gender swapped version of myself who is always interesting. I think that
Mhm.
would be fun to read about.
And also, then I would deduct from that, because I read the book, you are someone who is um, interested in being truthful in your relationships and be accepting of people with diverse backgrounds. I mean, this is very sort of broad statement here, but I think Tegan comes across as someone who, well, she's not beating around the bush. I mean, she puts shit as it is, and she
Mm,
says it, and I mean, with the possible, in a way, in a kind of an undiplomatic way, I guess, potentially, but she is just very, very, very loyal person, right?
yeah, I'd say so. The thing I always say about Tegan is that she is not a misanthrope. She loves people. Tegan is fascinated by people. She's
Mhm.
fascinated about what makes them tick. She wants to talk to them. She wants to hang out with them. She's very interested in other people, and that's very different to me. Where I'm very happy being by myself, and I could quite happily be without other people.
Mhm.
But that's what fascinates me about her because she's had all this horrible, horrible shit happen to her, but she still fundamentally believes that people in this world are good and that everybody's got something to contribute. I don't always agree with her on that.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the mark of when you've created a good character is when you start disagreeing with them on things, because then you go, all right, this character has now gone beyond my own worldview. This character now has her own view on things, and I'm not necessarily going to vibe with that. Um, but yeah, so yeah, Tegan just loves people, and and loyalty is very important to her because if people show loyalty to her, she's very likely to reciprocate that and to make those people's happiness her priority.
You said something really interesting, and this I saw an interview with two prominent book tubers. One guy has a channel, Leaf by Leaf, which is great, and they were talking about that reading to them is to be in contact with a lot of different people without actually being with them, right? So you're being in their mind, and what how you described yourself, I would describe myself very similarly.
Mm,
I enjoy people. I'm very interested in people, but I need to be alone to, to for my sort of balance and energy. I'm a person who needs a lot of quiet, I guess, or alone time.
yeah.
Um, and to me, books always presented themselves as vehicles of being with a lot of different people and going deep into their minds without the messiness. And this sounds awful. I mean, I enjoy
No,
being
not at
around people
all.
too.
I,
I'm a
I
social
completely
person.
understand.
Yeah, right. But that might come across as by some self-proclaimed extroverts as somebody like, oh, you just hate people. No, that it couldn't be further from the truth. But sometimes it gets a little exhausting.
Yeah, people are messy and complicated and difficult, and there are some people who thrive off that kind of those kind of interactions. But I think for people like me, and it definitely sounds like you as well, we like to observe a little bit from a distance and engage on our own terms. Now, we live in the real world. That's not always possible, and it would not be fun to just interact with nobody and be alone all the time. But at the same time, those interactions require a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And so our introverted selves, we have to spend a lot of time alone. And I always have been very, very comfortable spending time with myself. Like you see those things online, like, would you move to this deserted castle with no internet for a
Yeah,
year for
exactly.
$1 million? I'm like,
Yes.
fuck yeah, I would. Where do I sign? Yeah.
And I think you're also, I mean, I think we need to contextualize this for the audience. It's about the time that we have for our own sort of choosing, I guess, because that doesn't necessarily make us introverts or extroverts. At least that's sort of my sense. It just, I think there's more difference in people who how do you recharge your batteries? And I'm also someone who is comfortable alone, and the way to recharge my batteries is definitely through being alone. I have a lot of friends after work, they need to go to like a really loud place, or they need to just be around people, and that's how they recharge their batteries. It's just a different, different genetic makeup, basically.
For sure.
Now, where are we? Oh, we're actually out of time. Goodbye. No, we're gonna roll the VIP hangout into the main show.
Okay.
So usually we do an hour, and then we do the 30 minutes just for the in-world audience. But we're gonna be more democratic as we have been in the past. And I actually have a huge reveal here. Let me make sure that I get this right. I mentioned that we have the real Jackson Ford on the program today, but I have to admit that I lied. You're actually not Jackson Ford, and nobody knows this. So this is obviously a exclusive reveal here on the Second Life on the Second Life
Nobody
book club.
knows this. Come on, bro.
You're actually Rob Beauford, a
Yep. Jackson Ford ain't the
prolific
real name.
How do you pronounce it actually? Rob Beaufort?
Buffard.
Buffard?
Yep.
And you are a prolific speculative fiction writer. Here is a slide in the that I just brought up with your books: Adrift, Dust, Impact, Tracer, Zero G. You probably get this question asked a million times. I also asked you when we first met. Why did you change your name to this pseudonym?
The Frost Files series was completely different to anything I'd written before. Different voice, different genre. Um, and so I had a chat with my editor and agent, and the way they laid it out was not only it'll be a little confusing for my Rob Buffard readers to suddenly be hit with this completely different style, and also booksellers are far more likely to get excited about the first Jackson Ford book than they will about the fifth Rob Buffard book.
Hmm.
It was not an easy decision for me. I tend to be very resistant to stuff like that, but in hindsight, their advice was absolutely correct. It's made a huge difference. Jackson Ford has done much, much better than Rob Buffard ever did, significantly better. So, yeah,
Are
it's
you better? Let me jump in here. Do you think you're better or different? Because I saw
just
you actually
different, just
tweet
different.
recently. You said about one book. You said this is the best book I ever wrote. I think Adrift. I think you were referencing. So it's
Yeah,
different. So yeah, go ahead.
it is different. Look, Adrift is a sci-fi novel that I think came out in 2018. Um, And in terms of like when I look back at my books, Adrift is the one where I think it was the closest to my original vision. Where I know I like extracted the most out of the story. This is not to throw shade on the Frost Files, which I love passionately and deeply. But the Frost Files are in many ways a lot more complicated and a lot trickier to write. Um, I've kind of forgotten where I was going with this. I'm different. It's not
Mhm.
Jackson Ford is no better or worse than Rob Buffett. For one thing, they're the same person. It's not like I have different masks that I wear or
No,
anything.
it's like a
Um,
rapper doing a metal album, just basically like Hangar 18. You were saying earlier, it's a rap reference,
did
but to
you
me, it's
just
a metal
compare me to
reference.
Lil Wayne? I mean,
I
you do
compared
you,
to you
man.
Public Enemy and Anthrax, but anyways,
That works too. There's quite a few questions, good questions related
good
to this in
questions.
the
Yeah.
chat, actually. Yeah. So Jessica asked, "Do you know why there's a difference in sales?" Yeah, quite easily, because when you see a cover called of a book called "The Girl Who Could Move Shit with Her Mind" in a bookstore, you're picking that shit up. Um,
Mhm.
a great cover and a great title help a lot. My publisher is very good at both, and they knew what would sell this, and people did in fact pick it up, and it's done incredibly well. So Alphonse asks, how do pseudonyms work? Is it like a persona? You have to build yourself from the ground up
Yeah,
again.
because you
Um,
mentioned that people generally know this. This is a good question. So you're not doing like a, I don't know, this is not a perfect answer, but kiss with the mask and without the mask. But yeah.
no, I mean, Jackson Ford is Rob Buffard online. I didn't have to build anything up. That was just my personality.
Mhm.
I just let it shine through a little more. So, how do pseudonyms work? I mean, you just pick another name and you publish under that name. That's really it. And I wouldn't say it's a persona. I don't slip into Jackson Ford mode. Um, I've always been a guy who tells fucking terrible jokes and swears a lot and likes weird rap albums that no one else has ever heard of. That's just always been me. It's just that now I'm expressing it a little bit more
Mhm.
through fiction.
Let's see here. There's a question on YouTube. Did we get these questions here? Shyla, a couple terms. Oh, Shyla, who was listening to your interview, said couple terms in the interviews I reviewed. What is head hopping and info dumps, and how do
Right.
they
Okay.
relate to your stories?
So a little bit of author jargon. So head hopping is just changing point of view. So one chapter will be from the point of view of
Ah,
one character, and that chapter will be from the point of view of another character. That's all it is, really. It's just
but
it's
also you're mixing first person and third person. Is
I
that
yeah.
allowed?
Well, if it's not allowed, I'm in a lot of fucking trouble, aren't I?
I just wanted
No,
to set this up so you
it's
swear more. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's trickier to do that. But I find I like working that way. I like working in the pocket like that. But yeah, that's all head hopping is just different points of view. Info dump is where you need to explain something to the reader. And
Hmm.
so you have a couple paragraphs or a couple pages of information. So you're not actually telling a story. The characters aren't doing things. All it is just, oh, here's a lot of information that you need to understand the story. Infodumps get a bad rap. Um, I a lot of writing advice, and for the record, a lot of writing advice is bullshit. A lot of writing advice tells you to avoid info dumps. My response
Hmm.
is no, don't avoid info dumps. Just write better info dumps. Um, there's the it's perfectly fine to just step back for a second and tell the reader stuff they need to know. You just
Right.
have to make that stuff interesting and make it worth reading.
And
There's a lot.
some people love, I guess, some stuff that I have difficulty with, and other people love in hard sci-fi is info dumps on a sort of a technical level over the
Yeah,
course of like 50 pages, how a time machine works.
yeah, to my mind that's taking things a little bit far, but like there are fans of that. There are some
Hmm.
people who are like, fuck yeah, info dump, 50 pages, time machine, let's go. I'm definitely not one of them. I think you can go a bit far with info dumps, and I think there's a lot of potential to break the story. But when I come across an info dump in a book, I don't throw the damn thing across the room. I'm like, okay, cool. Just tell me what's going on. Make this worth my while.
Kodai Jean Starfall asks on YouTube follow up, if the main character is a gender swapped version of yourself, how did you get into the mindset to see it from that different gender perspective?
Oh man, I have to be careful
Your
with
wife
this
had to
one.
read it and you said, "Oh my God, that's terrible. You got to take that out."
No, I gotta be very very careful with this because I think with the question of writing first person and different gender, I think that there are many mines you can step on, and you have to be quite careful. Having said that, I approach the problem with one goal in mind. I'm not trying to write a great woman. I'm trying
Mhm.
to write a great character. I'm trying to write a human being. Um, and trying to write a character so she expresses the femininity perfectly. I'm just not going to understand. I'm a man. There are some things I'm just not going to understand about what it is like in the 21st century to be a woman. So I think that's an unrealistic goal. All I have to try and do, all I can do, is just try create the most complex, nuanced, realistic character I can,
Mhm.
and hope that's going to be enough. And in most cases, judging by comments from readers, um, it's come off quite well. So I try not to think too hard about it. I try not to assume anything. I definitely try to have women read my work before it's published. That's not a problem. My wife obviously is a woman. My editor is a woman. So, and there have been times where they pulled me up and gone, no, you need to rewrite this. You haven't quite got this 100% right. But I'm satisfied that the finished products I think do a good job of expressing that, or as good a job as I can hope for. They're not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. There are probably errors I've made or ways of expressing myself in these books that could probably be better. But I don't choose who the characters are. If a character is a woman, it feels and there's a woman in my mind, it feels very strange to change that. All I can do is try write them as honestly as possible.
And again, I think you've done a great job, and that's what writers
Cheers.
do. I mean, I would say that's the definition of a writer, to go into the minds of people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, and also genders, and also experiences. And when a good writer finds the humanity in all of those different people that he is not himself in the physical realm, then we have a truly good artist on our hands. And I don't want to swear on this program, but yeah, we have a good a guest here on the Second Life Book Club. Now we have one more reading, and that is from a book called Eye of the Shitstorm. uh,
Yeah, man.
real quick before we read this, what is about what you mentioned earlier that you like cooking and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and Tegan Frost is obsessed with getting out of, and I find that a nice detail. She's obsessed with, not obsessed, but she's focused on um the spy stuff is her day job, but she dreams of having a restaurant. I think
Yep.
that that is just really cool because it's also, there's a lot of subtext there. We have a day job, and we have our dreams, and we don't give up on the dreams of whatever that is. But where
Yeah.
does that come from? I mean, if she's sort of like a little, or related to you and your goals, do you want to it's like the Monty Pythons. I don't want to be accountant. I want to have a taco shop.
Do I want to open a restaurant? Fuck
Yeah.
no. I read a lot around the business of food, and the world of food criticism, and the stories that people write about their life in the hospitality industry. And the answer from me is a big fuck no. Opening a restaurant is I mean, the shit you have to deal with is insane. It is a completely wild dream, and only insane people actually get involved in that.
Yep.
I think it's a miracle that restaurants exist at all, with all the shit they have to go through. I do not. I love food. I adore food. I adore cooking. I could not ever in a million years do it professionally. But Tegan has slightly wilder dreams than I have. And she looks at the complexity of opening a restaurant and goes, yeah, but I want that. I want that challenge. Um, so
Anybody who worked in the food and beverage industry in any capacity will say, "Oh, there's a lot of microwaves falling around as you're talking about cooking."
I didn't notice that. Yeah. And if a professional chef tries to convince you they don't ever use the microwave, you can just say to them, right, like a customer has never ordered a well done steak. Get fucked, mate.
These microwaves, that this is the embodiment of the symbolism of the shitty future, if you want to be in the restaurant business, or if you want to run one. This is the manifestation of that hell that it could be potentially. Okay,
I'm,
what
I'm,
are
get-
we?
I'm getting a
Yes.
lot of microwaves dropped on my head here. Is this the version of the Second Life version of like people booing, like, get off the stage? They just throw microwaves at you?
No, no, I just did that because as you were talking, I had flashbacks from my PTSD working in the food and beverage industry.
Yep.
Talking about LA, I worked at the Bay Brandview Collection in Glendale. It was a
Wow.
Armenian-run restaurant. Actually, they have a huge website now. It looks fantastic. When I was there, it was just sort of, they had weddings, but they had sizable weddings, 300 to 500 people, and it was only one five-course meal, so it was pretty straightforward. But one anecdote that I will never forget. The guests asked me for decaf. If we have more decaf, I went back to the kitchen and said, "Hey, do we have more decaf?" And the chef says, "I just give these fuckers normal. They don't notice the difference." I don't know if somebody died, but anyways.
Oh man, can I tell one of my own real quick? Because I
Yeah,
used to
please,
I used to
please.
tend bar a lot. So I was working in a pub in London called the Australian, long gone, so they're not going
Oh,
to
the
sue me.
Australian.
Yeah,
Ah,
it's called the Australian. They're not going to. It's long gone. They're not going to sue me for telling this. And we had a French cook called Sammy, and he was the only cook in the kitchen. And Sammy's responsibility was obviously to do the food, but also to prepare the garnishes for drinks. So like our lemons and limes and cocktail olives and whatever, and he'd put them out. Um, and I made a customer a gin and tonic, I think, with a bit of lemon in it. And they were like, "This gin and tonic tastes like onion." I was like, "I'm terribly sorry, sir. I don't. What do you mean onion?" No, taste it. It tastes like onion. And I don't normally taste customers' drinks, but this I was so weirded out by it. I took a sip and I went, "Yeah, if you'll excuse me a moment, sir, I'm just going to have a word with the back." And I went and I said, kind of knocked on the kitchen door and went, "Sammy, could you please explain why this gentleman's drink tastes of onion?" He goes, "Oh, it must be because where I store the lemons, I put them on top of the cut onions." I was like, "Okay." Sammy, completely unrelated, did a lot of coke.
I think there's a correlation there. Was the complaining
Maybe.
customer an Australian though? That's what I want to ask. Because
I honestly don't remember the customer. I just remember Sammy kind of doing a very Gallic shrug and going, "I still am on top of the onions." I was just like, but why?
this this anecdote has to be in your next book. You have to
Oh, I
put
can
that
think
in
up
there.
way worse shit in the next book. It's fiction. I can make up shit.
Now this one, Eye of the Shitstorm. Where are we at? What? Oh yeah, you're reading from the very beginning. But
Reading from the very beginning, and we're gonna go into this one cold, just like the first one.
okay, I
Okay.
trust you.
Yeah, you gotta trust me, man. Okay. Oh, please, like you've never wanted to drive at high speed down a Los Angeles storm drain. Although I'm guessing your fantasy doesn't involve being chased by a gang of outlaw bikers who are shooting automatic weapons at you. And I'm 100% sure you would prefer not to be in a car holding 40 pounds of stolen high grade methamphetamine. It doesn't help that we don't actually have that much room to maneuver. The storm drain is 300 feet wide, but the, let's see, 6 bikes chasing us makes it seem a lot smaller. The sides of the drain are steeply sloped, not too steep to drive down, but a bitch to get back up, and there's a channel of water running right down the middle, too deep to cross. Heat from the late morning sun bakes off the concrete in shimmering waves as Africa goes foot to floor, swerving to avoid a bike that's gotten a little too close. I flinch back, white knuckling the edges of the van's passenger seat. This was a terrible idea, I shout. It was your idea, Annie Cruz roars from the back seat. Bullshit, I just wanted to steal their meth. It was you two who thought it would be fun to drop into the storm drain and. Fuck! A bullet takes out the side mirror, inches from me. Africa reaches across and pulls me down, spitting an angry curse in French. Another bike comes up alongside us, straddled by a thick necked goon with bad facial tats. He's carefully aiming a handgun the size of a prime rib roast and clearly hoping to get more than just the wing mirror this time. How the hell does he even stay on the bike with the recoil? Bye bye, I say, reaching out with my mind and jerking the gun out of his hands. Oh, didn't I mention? I can move things with my mind. It's called psychokinesis, PK for short. The rushing air whips the gun out of sight. Technically, I'm not supposed to use my ability in public, or in ways that might reveal it to others. My scary government handler doesn't like it. But what is this biker asshole going to do? No, guys, really, she pulled it out of my hands with her mind. I swear, I totally don't have butterfingers. Why are you laughing? Stop it! Tegan, Africa's Senegalese inflected roar fills the car. There's too many. Use your demo powers, huh? I just did. Why do you think we're not getting shot at more? Stop their motorbikes. Break the engines. Already tried that. When they first started chasing us, I used my PK to crunch the engine internals of one of the bikes, and the result was horrifying. The bike didn't stop neatly, as I'd hoped. Instead, it wobbled and skidded and dumped its driver onto the tarmac at high speed, scraping him to a bloody comatose pulp. And it's not like these people stopped to put on helmets. Sure, I'm a psychokinetic government agent, but I do not like killing people.
And that's Eye of the Shitstorm. I believe the third installment, and the fourth one is coming out in May. Now,
Yep.
can somebody please clean up these microwaves? I mean, that's terrible. Uh, thank you for thank you for reading, Jax. This is really awesome.
No doubt.
And again, I just want to stress the awesomeness of people coming with their biker, not motorbike, but skating and skating and roller skating gear. Please um, do hang around after the show, and you can skate around. And Kitten, thank you so much for the super chat. That is amazing, Kitten. With this super chat, you can ask us 10 questions. You can, with this super chat, I will give you Jackson's cell phone number.
Oh, you will you?
Let me read it live on the air. No. Um, Codaine Starfall, thank you for your questions, and I forgive you stealing Jackson's seat. Now, where was I? I wanted to. Oh yeah, do you want to mention translation? I know you had a bad experiences with the German publisher. I don't want to. We don't need to get into that, but just in general, how difficult is it to get translated? That has to do with sales, I guess, right? I mean, it's expensive to get a translator. and to go into a foreign market. And I just realized just before the show that you have one book in German, but it's not the girl. It's not the first one, I don't
It
think.
is. It
Oh, it
is.
is. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to put the publisher on blast. You know, getting a translation, it largely depends on whether your home language publishers, in my case, my English language publishers, can sell the book to foreign markets.
Hmm.
And obviously, Orbit, who are my publisher, they have some experience in that arena, so they sold it to a German publisher. I've had a few. It's not the first time I've had my books published in German. I've actually got, I think, three other books, including Adrift, published in Germany, which is absolutely fantastic. And I'm hoping to we've actually just got back the foreign rights for a lot of my stuff, myself and my agents. So we are going to be pitching to a lot of other foreign markets. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get more languages in the future, which will be fantastic. It's a process I have nothing to do with. I get told, "Oh, we sold your books in German," and then a year or so later, I get a couple of copies in the post. And because like, what could I possibly contribute? I don't speak German. I
Hmm.
have nothing to contribute to the process beyond going, "Hey guys, thanks for doing this. Thanks for the money. Really appreciate it." That is literally like the only thing I do in the process. I cash the checks.
Hmm. This is I have an image here. This is called Die letzte Hoffnung, is how they translated this. And this is from a reviewer from YouTube. I put it here on the big board behind. No, this is
Oof.
always interesting, how these come about. I read a book called The Gray House by a Russian author of Armenian descent, but she wrote it in Russian, and that was a Amazon has a subsidiary that does translations apparently. So
Yes,
it's
that's true.
interesting. I have Amazon is a very problematic company, but that I mean, what they do in terms of translation is kind of cool and also important. Okay, now we're really running out of time. We have 10 minutes left. Any last words, plans for the future, changing your name again, or what?
No,
No.
no, no plans to change the name. The fourth book in the Frost Files, which is called A Shitload of Crazy Powers, that comes out on May 10th. Pre-orders are open now. If you like what you heard today, please do me a favor and drop a pre-order. They give me life. I really appreciate it when people do that. Um, and just Drax, thanks to you and your team for putting together such a fantastic event. This is the most memorable interview I think I've ever been to. Definitely the most chaotic. I've had an absolute blast, and you guys all do a fantastic job. So thank you.
I hope the chaos, the reference to the chaos, is only confined to the microwaves, the rebar, and the hubcaps, not the excellent Germanic logistical preparation that I did. Am I correct, Jackson?
You're 100% correct. Your logistical preparation was great. Shyla, thank you for posting that in the chat. A link to my website is just jacksonfordauthor.com. Go find me there. And if you want to chat to me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Definitely not on Facebook, because fuck Facebook.
Thank you. Absolutely. Folks, please educate yourself about Meta. It's not only stupid, but it's also really dangerous the way it's set up. But Jackson, this was really, really awesome. And thank you for writing this, and thank you for feeding my reading addiction. Thank you, Rob. Thank you,
No
audience.
doubt.
I want to make sure that people understand they can offer our guest friendship if they want. And as people are aware, and that sometimes the friendship is not reciprocated for whatever reason. That's of course the agency of the guest. We did have one time a person who would send a guest unsolicited 400 note cards of his work in progress to ask him to review it. So this is
Wow.
almost as an interesting sort of virtual world version of someone coming to a book conversation with a huge manuscript and basically dumping it into the author's lap while he's reading it. So the reason why I'm saying it is I want to foster community with this program. We all do. So please befriend each other, send the guests nice thoughts, whatever you want to do. Of course, stick around. All these worlds are sticking around. We're on Book Island number 3. Thank you, big time audience on YouTube as well. So I'm going to go through the credits. Thank you, Kitten Duo. Cynthia here on the YouTube. Cynthia Tenicula says, thank you, Jackson Ford. Cody and
What up,
Starfall.
Cynthia?
You know each other. You got to come and do a little bit skateboarding in the post game. Come on, Cynthia, let's do this. where are my credit slides? The Second Life Book Club is happening every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Second Life time. That's Pacific time, and the microwaves are still falling around. That's awesome. You can contact the show at slbookclub@draxtor.com. You can give us suggestions for authors, also what we can do better. The show is produced by Isabel Sharon, Shala the Super Gecko, Draxter Dupre is me. The location manager is Ruby Geek, and she's also the master builder. The avatars are made by Ruby. The research is by Shyla, and we have a whole bunch of sponsors. Those are people who give us their stuff for free, so we can build with it. Blueberry, Bespoke, Bad Unicorn, Landscapes Unlimited, Linden Lab gave us the islands, Ragviar, Salt Pepper, Creatures, What Next, the Black Forests, Link, Skin Stealer Syndrome made actually special avatars when Lauren Bucas was here, Jackson. I mean, you know Lauren Bucas is from your neck of the woods,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah. No, I know Lauren. Lauren is fucking awesome.
that was also really cool. I hope that she comes back. Maybe I can pair both of you guys in on a panel or something.
I
Um,
would I would just sit there speechless that I got to be on a panel with Lauren Bucas. The Shining Girls, her book The Shining Girls is actually
yeah,
about to come out on Apple TV as an Apple TV series with Elizabeth Moss. I'm fucking so stoked for her. It's a great
yeah.
book.
Oh, actually, Shyla said that she read on your website that you have something coming out, or the rights were sold to CBS for a TV show.
That's right. Yeah, the rights to the Frost Files have been optioned by CBS, so that means that
Ah,
they are now going to go out and see if they can get this made as a TV show. Doesn't mean it ever will. Um, this being Hollywood, especially in the middle of COVID, these things may or may not happen. I have no control over it, but it does mean that they put some money down and showed some faith. Like, yeah, we can get this done. It's Alex Kurtzman and Heather Caden. Between them, they've done like Fringe, Star Trek Discovery,
oh
Transformers.
yeah,
Like, these are people who know how to get a project over the finish line. I think if it ever does happen, when it happens, they're going to do a fantastic job of it. I'm as excited as you guys to see how it turns out. I have absolutely
right.
no idea.
And I don't want to jinx it by telling the story of Joe Haldeman, who was here on the show. Joe Haldeman sold the option to the Forever War before it came out in 1973, and the film is still not made. So
Yeah,
we wish you better luck, Jackson. In
thanks, man.
meantime,
I yeah.
that gives people a lot of time to buy the books, right? Am I right? Come
Oh
on,
yeah,
let's sell
yeah,
some books.
exactly. Yeah, you never know how these things are going to work out. The old the aphorism that always gets thrown around is in publishing everything's a no until it's a yes, and in Hollywood everything's a yes until it's a no. So we
Oh, that
just
is a good one.
right. I didn't make that up. I
Oh.
just read it somewhere. But yeah, we don't. I don't know when that's going to happen. If it's going to happen, I have absolutely no idea. All I can do is put my head down and just keep writing books.
And you do that, and meantime, you can do kick flips and heel flips and ollies, and I've been doing
Yes,
like
sir.
crazy.
I want to go. I want to go check out this China shop van and the
Yeah,
Grillmatic Taqueria. I didn't. I never. Are they over here?
they're up there. I gotta say one more thing, and then we can go into the post game. People can hang out next
Yeah.
week, 12 o'clock. Kat Sparks and Karen Warren, both from Australia. Although we're doing the normal time, usually for the Australians, we do ungodly times for the Europeans and the Americans. But this time, the Australians have agreed. The negotiations were they were tough, but they have agreed to come on 12 o'clock Second Lifetime, which for them is 7 o'clock in the morning. Kat Sparks and Karen Warren, two amazing speculative fiction authors. So don't miss that, and we'll see you next week right here on the Second Life Book Club. Let's skate. Goodbye.